for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to have the pleasure to, I'm just put my timer on as well, like all the things that we have to worry about when we're doing these kind of virtual presentations. Here we go. So yeah, for the next 30 minutes, I have the pleasure to talk to you about cloud, AI, ML, and high performance computing, and how those three components, those three amazing technologies and revolutions almost, are accelerating the pace of innovation in healthcare and life sciences. So bear with me. I hope you enjoy and learn something from today, and I hope you take something away as well. And at the end, I'm going to leave my email address, because if anyone would like to follow up, if you have a startup or if you're in the healthcare system or in a life science company and we can be of help, we'd love to be. So yeah, just a little bit about me. So I'm Guy. I currently lead up the work of AWS and Amazon in Europe, Middle East, and Africa with healthcare and life science startups and the innovation community around those startups. So that's venture capital funds, accelerators, incubators, hospitals that are doing innovation, life science companies, pharma companies, and it's a real honor, really, to be able to work with amazing entrepreneurs all the time who are really trying to change the world. A bit about me. So former VC, I was with a VC called Amoon before this job. It's a large fund out of Israel with $1.5 billion under management, investing in early and late stage healthcare and life science startups. I also led the entrepreneurship program at the Weizmann Institute. It's a large biotech institute in Israel responsible for a few blockbuster drugs. And before that, a startup C-level and founder in medical devices and software. Originally from Australia, but currently living in Tel Aviv and soon relocating to Amsterdam. So that's a bit about me, but enough about me. If there's one message that I want you to take home today, is that the privilege that we all have, that you know, people in the audience, everyone presenting today, and these 3 days who are engaged with healthcare innovation and life sciences innovation, is that we get to fasten the time to clinical value. Other industries like to talk about, you know, fastening the time to market, making more money, really doing very important things for those industries. But when we work together and when we bring technology and finance and people and talent and regulation to work together, what it means is that we can bring therapies to market faster. We can make healthcare more accessible, and that will save lives or improves people's lives greatly. And that's really the mission that we all have. Obviously, that's a really big vision and statement. We're going to break that down a little bit today, but let's just understand a little bit more the problem and the challenge that we're facing as an industry. So, here we go. So 10 years is still the average time it takes to get a drug to market. Think about it. It's a lot. And that's a 1/7 of an average human lifespan on Earth. Maybe an 1/8, depending on where you live. That's a long time to wait for a therapy, especially if you're in this category. 7,000 rare diseases on average. There's a debate about exactly how many there are, but it's accepted around 7,000 rare diseases, affecting up to 10% of the population. Think about that. Up to 10% of the population have these 7,000 rare diseases. Almost all of them have no therapy or no cure. So yeah, we have a huge mission. That's on the life science therapeutic development side. Let's take therapies that are currently existing and let's look at a massive issue called health equity. All right. Now, I've taken this from the Fred Hutch Institute, and we'll talk about them later. They're an AWS customer doing some incredible things with machine learning. But they put out this chart about cancer health disparities at a glance. Okay. So African American men and women have 111% and 39% higher risk of dying from prostate cancer and breast cancer, respectively, compared to their white counterparts. Okay. 20% and 38% of Hispanic children are more likely to develop leukemia than non-Hispanic. Let's take another statistic. men living in the poorest counties in the United States have a colorectal cancer death rate 35% higher than men living in the most affluent countries. And bisexual women are 70% more likely to be diagnosed with cancer than heterosexual women. So if the slide before was talking about therapies that we still need to develop, here there are solutions, but it's not getting to everyone. So part of that is society, but maybe part of that can be bridged by the because of lack of resources through technology. So what we need to do with the cloud, and with AI and ML, there's an L missing there, and high performance computing, is we need to drive down the cost of care while improving quality. We need to enable data-driven operational and clinical decisions. We need to improve research and collaboration, accelerate therapeutic development processes, and create personalized and engaging experiences for patients and customers. I mean, think about that last point. The amount of the ease in which we can access our favorite TV show on Netflix or Prime Video, right? Or we can get specialized recommendations on Amazon.com, for example. Or the way our telephones, you can land in one country and it'll work. And think about that. When you land in another country, you're in a new healthcare system, they know nothing about you. So for things that aren't to do with our healthcare and our lives, we've managed to find a way to make incredible, personalized, engaging experiences, yet healthcare is lagging far behind. I'll talk a little bit later about some of the structural and commercial reasons why that's the case, but it's still a challenge, and we know from the market, we know from patients and customers, they are looking for better healthcare and engaging experiences. So just a little bit about AWS. Amazon Web Services, AWS, is the cloud computing arm of Amazon. Cloud computing refers to the on-demand delivery of IT resources via the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. Think of electricity. You only pay for what you use. In the old days, when you had servers in your office or in a data center next door, you own those servers. If you used 10% of that capacity or 80%, they cost you the same. With cloud computing, you can trade that capital expense for variable expense. You can benefit from massive economies of scale. And this is really important for high performance computing or machine learning. Sometimes you need a huge amount of computing resources, sometimes you don't. And so you can quickly get that scale for a much fraction of the cost of having to buy it all for yourself. You can stop guessing capacity. You don't have to make those predictions. It's available. It's public cloud. You can increase your speed and agility. You can focus on your business differentiators. And that's really important, especially for the startups there in the audience. You don't want to focus on the boring stuff that everyone has access to. You want to focus on the stuff that makes you unique and will drive value for you, your investors, your customers. And you want to go global. If you want to go global in minutes, that's possible via the cloud. And literally, it's the building blocks of a digitally enhanced, data-driven world. We have compute and storage and database and networking, security and compliance. That's job zero. We don't do anything without ensuring the security, compliance, privacy of everyone's data. But we have in compute so many different ways of computing, instances we call them. So different types of storage. You might need storage to access it once every however many years. That can be in a lower level of storage that costs you less than storage that you need access to every minute. It's not just those early services like compute and storage that we launched the cloud with. Now we're adding greater leverage, agility, and velocity with machine learning services and analytics and IoT and development tools. So really, there's no compression algorithm for experience. We have 15 years as the most comprehensive, broadly adopted cloud platform, 8 years with a dedicated healthcare and life sciences cloud technology practice. And the leaders of that practice have an average of 18 years experience in the industry. And that's really important. When you're speaking to my team and our teams at AWS, we understand your business, your needs, and we are bringing the AWS service and tailoring it to your needs. 1 million active customers, 2,000 agencies, 5,000 educational institutions. It's a huge amount of experience. And these are just some of the large customers and startups. You'll see Moderna and Pfizer and Cerner here, but also startups like MediSafe and let me find more startups here, Butterfly. You know, there's just, you know, these are really just a few of the startups and big organizations that we work with. So what's our mission in healthcare and life sciences? So we want to enable access and delivery of person-centered healthcare, driving improved outcomes at a lower cost by accelerating the digitization and utilization of healthcare and life sciences data. So we want to provide security and compliance. We want to accelerate innovation. We want to unlock the value of data, and we want to power the transition to personalized health. So Jeff Bezos, when he founded Amazon, he said we had three big ideas. We want to put the customer first, we want to invent, and then we want to be patient. And the question I pose, and if we were here in an audience, I would actually ask you this. I would be like, who is the customer in healthcare? And people will put up their hands and say all sorts of things. Well, you know, obviously at the center of it all is the patient, right? The patient is what we ultimately care about. But if you've got a startup, are you selling directly to the patient? Are they paying the bills, the invoice? Are you putting the invoice to the patient? Or are you looking at one of the other P's in healthcare, which could be what I call the 4 P's of healthcare? The second P being the provider. Okay, the provider is anyone delivering a healthcare service. So that could be a hospital, a clinic, a physiotherapy center, a dentist. These are all providers. Okay, so that's the second P of healthcare that you have to think about when you're developing your business model and your product and go to market and who your customer is. The third P in healthcare is the payer. Who pays for healthcare? Think about that. If you're a patient and you've discovered there's a new innovation that can help you clinically, and fastening the time to clinical value is what we're all about, okay? You often want someone else, your provider, your doctor, to tell you about it and to recommend it, and you want someone else to pay for it. Is that your government health system or your private insurer? But how all these 3 Ps work together, patient, provider, payer, is dictated by a pathway. And that pathway changes from healthcare system to healthcare system. And it's really important to understand that when you're building your technology platform and when you're building your business model. So that's just like a little tip for the innovators out there. And for those thinking about how they're going to access the market, have a think about how the patient, provider, payer all link together in the markets you're trying to access. Right, so the challenges that we're hearing from healthcare customers, and these are more the providers side of things and payers, is that value-based care requires data-driven decision-making, but they don't have the resources to implement it. Data-driven decision-making, value-based care stands for paying, instead of paying for a service, you pay for an outcome, right? So I don't care how many times someone goes to the doctor, I just want them to get better, and I'm gonna pay for when they get better, right? But you need data to do that right. There's a lot of physician burnout. That's a huge issue in healthcare. The traditional IT models lack agility, and we need to keep pace with new technologies. There's insufficient security, compliance, and availability to hamper out an ability to compete and open the door to sophisticated and hard to identify attacks. So the problem with cyber in healthcare. And our customers expecting different experience and level of engagement from the organization. We talked about that before. So how can machine learning help? It can help with care quality improvement, algorithms that identify, for example, on medical imaging, the exact helping the radiologist make a much more exact diagnosis and much faster. Okay, so that's improving quality of care. For example, operational efficiency, managing compliance with what's called personal health information, patient and population analytics, revenue cycle management, the whole process of billing and getting paid, especially in the United States, which is such a complicated healthcare system, and increasing customer engagement. So let's talk about two areas, particularly where machine learning can impact: predicting patient health events and personalizing the consumer health journey. Starting with predicting patient health events. So we have a long heritage of using machine learning at Amazon.com, personalized recommendations, inventory management, fulfillment, and automation. Also, our customers at AWS also use a lot of machine learning in terms of prediction. So Netflix, Lyft, Expedia, and so forth. Let's think about a healthcare example. Cerner, big electronic medical records company. The patient arrives today. We take a look at their medical history, 12 months of data, and then we can predict a chronic heart failure 15 months before the onset and intervene in time, right? That's why prediction is so important. Here's an example from General Electric, predicting patient health events, detecting a lung puncture, for example. So the next bit I'm going to talk about is personalizing the consumer health journey. So key industry chains, personalizing patient engagement at every touch point, modernizing contact centers, thinking beyond the pill. So this is like the digital therapeutics, matching patients with treatments more likely to benefit them. So for example, MedStar Health, big health system, rebuilding their patient engagement portal, 102 websites into single destination, only eliminated 2 hours of downtime per month, increased download times from averaging 15 to 120 milliseconds, and gained a platform for growth as it positions as a digital healthcare leader. Okay, so they can create mobile social web services to touch the consumer wherever they are, the patient wherever they are. Voice in healthcare is a big deal. So Alexa is a cloud-based service, as you know. Alexa has Alexa for business. We also have Alexa for healthcare. But what's really important to know, if you want to build a voice-enabled engine, you can use some of the core Alexa technologies on AWS for your own startup or for your own healthcare organization. And this is what the Boston Children's Hospital did. They took what they created an Alexa skill called My Children's Enhanced Recovery After Surgery, which allows patients and caregivers to easily share recovery progress with their care team post-surgery. So instead of having to call up and wait on the line and everything, just with an Alexa interface, a parent of a child who's gone through surgery can interact with Alexa, and the medical staff will get data on exactly how the recovery process is going. Analyzing machine learning for healthcare. It's, where we use it for automation to improve care, medical intelligence, and improving efficiency. But a lot of the use cases is around understanding and utilizing unstructured data. 1.2 billion medical documents created per year, and then critical information is trapped and difficult to gain insights. So, you want to be able to do AI-powered diagnosis and automate operations and smart patient care, but if the data is not organized in structured data sets and with ability to add business intelligence, BI layer, and then machine learning above it, then it's useless, right? And so we introduced a service called Comprehend Medical, which what it knows how to do is take a text like this. This is an oncology report, right? Which is just a ream of text. An oncology doctor taking notes from a meeting with a patient, results from different tests that they did. That is almost unusable for a machine, right? And in fact, it just is stored. But with Comprehend Medical in milliseconds, you can identify the demography, the disease indicators, and the therapeutics, put that in a database, and then above that, put actions that you want to, in terms of what you want to do with that data. And so that's like a revolution now, where we can upload all of that text data into structured data. And how is this being used is in the Fred Hutch Center, which I mentioned before, which talked about cancer disparities. One of the biggest challenges they have is finding patients for clinical trials. There's inclusion and exclusion criteria, and they have banks of nurses and sometimes doctors actually looking at those reams of text that I showed you before, and it takes them minutes, if not hours, to find a candidate. Now with Comprehend Medical, all the records just go through, they write a query, and then they've got their 100 candidates for a clinical trial. Now, if I go back to the 10 years that it takes to develop a drug, sometimes it takes 4 or 5 months just to find candidates for a clinical trial. If those 4 or 5 months become 10 minutes or an hour or even 3 days, let's say, we've already saved a big part of that 10 years. And that's why it's so important to apply these technologies in healthcare. Extracting audio transcriptions. So Amazon Transcribe Medical. I really love this one, okay? And it's only starting to be used now. But basically, you know, when you go to a doctor today, at least in Israel, we have amazing medical records, but sometimes the patient experience can look a bit like this, okay? I'm gonna act it out, see if it works on the computer. Let's say you're the patient looking straight, I'm the doctor, but the doctor has to type at the same time when they're talking to me. So it looks like this, and this is how I'm looking at my doctor on the side, right? And like, because they're typing and then they don't have that eye-to-eye contact. So we want technology not to replace the doctor. No. We want the technology to free the doctor to be able to interact and have that so important human interaction. And technologies like Transcribe Medical allow that to happen because it can listen to the conversation, transcribe it all, then you apply Comprehend Medical on top of that, and then populate an electronic medical record. Okay, the whole customer experience is better. The clinician is experienced better. We talked about before, clinician burnout is a problem. This is going to help, a small part of help. But again, every little small improvement is going to make the experience better for the clinician and the patient. Also make the data more accessible so that we can use it for developing new therapies and to making care more accessible. Another sort of extracting data from image, we have a service called Amazon Recognition. So labels, objects and scenes, unsafe image video detection, face search, all these type of things. But in healthcare, what we can do is actually take an X-ray, which has patient information actually in text on the actual image, and actually extract that, right? And then it becomes much more useful. And then instead of the radiologist often having to waste time, or the technician, to actually type things out again and again and again and again. Getting all of that waste out of the healthcare system is super important. So I'm going to talk a bit about a custom example from Israel. It's a company called Navina, who strive for healthier patients and healthier economics. Navina, what they set out to do, and the company started a few years ago by some incredible engineers, they set out, and machine learning experts really, they set out to say, well, you know, when you go to a doctor, they have a primary care physician, a family doctor or GP, depending on where you live, what you call it. When you go to that kind of medical professional, they have access to all this data on you, but because they've inputted it, or it's come from other sources, from other places, especially if there's interoperability and all those things working. But do they actually use the data? Do they have time to actually review all the healthcare data on a particular patient before they walk in the door, so that they can have a more informed and intelligent conversation? And most of the time, the answer is no. There are not enough doctors, not enough nurses anywhere in the world, really. And so we need to actually find a way to make that data. It's not enough to have the data. That was one challenge. The Comprehend Medical is about getting more data into the system. Now, once you have all that data, how do you make that accessible and usable for the benefit of the clinician and the patient? And that's the problem that Navina were looking at, okay? So physicians are drowning in data. This is now, I've taken slides from Navina with their permission. They're great AWS customers, reference customers. Physicians are drowning in data, leading to dangerous physician burnout. Talked about that already. Misdiagnoses and preventive care opportunities. That's a big deal. I talked about clinical value. I don't know, it's just happened to me personally. I've gone into the doctor's office, often with a list of things that I want, and I always forget one or two of them. I don't know, it just happens. And so and then you feel a bit embarrassed to call back. And doctors also, they want to understand, when they're in front of you, they want to get it right. They want to do the best for you. And unfortunately, because they don't have, know how to access the data properly or use it properly, they're so busy and so swamped, there's misdiagnosis. And there's misvalue so particularly in the US, they're dealing with a problem for misvalue-based revenue for physician groups. So what Navina has done is they've developed something called an AI-powered patient portrait based on data from multiple sources. So they take all the patient data that they have on file from the different medical records, different systems that have come in, but they also then can look at the latest medical research and the latest guidelines and recommendations. They can review a case in minutes. They can identify potential quality and risk gaps. They can take action and document with a click. They can track performance over time and create this portrait. And they're using AWS services and their own very advanced machine learning algorithms, using high performance computing to run some of these algorithms. And it's medical language that is complex, and advanced AI can grasp it. And the results are really amazing. Okay, so they've been, is life-changing. It feels much safer that I've not missed a critical detail because I have an extra set of eyes on the patient with me. And so they're increasing the amount of diagnosis. They're reducing misdiagnosis. They're increasing the revenue as well in the United States model. So even though the clinical value is really what's exciting, but for these physician groups who have to invest in a new technology, it actually translates also to increased revenue. I'm not going to talk about this a lot, but it was only half an hour. But the convergence of high-performance computing and big data in healthcare and life sciences is a big deal, especially for new drug development and genomics and imaging and modeling and simulation. Again, I'm not going to dive into this a lot, but I do want to give an example of a company called Carius from California, a startup, that what they are able to do is with 5 millimeters of blood in a tube, they can process the DNA and identify within less than a day 1,000 pathogens. So now when you go for a blood test, you have to say, I want to check for this, this, and this. You don't need to do that with Carius. They check for every single one of these 1,000+ pathogens on one sample. And the results are available the very next day. Right, I'm going to end off with a bit of a call to action, especially for the startups out there, but not only. We have a business development team globally. It's all exited founders, people who are C-levels at startups, investors, operators, medical doctors, bioinformaticians. And we're here to serve you, the highest potential startups in healthcare and life sciences. What we don't do is we don't take, we invest indirectly alongside venture funds and accelerators, but we don't take a capital position. We don't take any equity. We can provide credits for using AWS services. We can invest time. We can share our knowledge, experience, and wisdom, open doors internally and externally. We can remove obstacles, leverage our global footprint, inform, influence, and support other AWS teams, champion startups across all of Amazon, and we can take a long-term view. So we're really happy to work with you, even at the earlier stages. What you'll expect to receive is technical support and design and optimization and best practices and reference architectures and security and compliance and reviews and credits, but also on commercial. We like to do co-marketing, industry insights, reviews to some customers. Sorry about that. And let me just go back here. Sorry about that. That's my next meeting. Capital intros too. We can introduce you to VCs as well. That's the last slide. It's just for me now. I've got 1.5 minutes left. It's for me to say thank you. Please be in touch. guysp@amazon.com. Especially if you're startups, that's my job, is to look after startups. But if you want to weigh into other healthcare life science teams at Amazon and at AWS, I'd be happy to direct you to the right people. We're here really to support the best technologies, the best teams who are out there to go and solve some of the hardest problems in healthcare life sciences, so that we can, all this technology is not just for the sake of it, but it's actually, like I said before, we can all fasten the time to clinical value. So with that, I'll say thank you, and thank you to the organizers once again, and it's been a pleasure.